Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hello and good evening. How are you all?
Lovely to see you all. Welcome again to Hugh and Lorraine's Let's Talk Live. Just to state, what you saw there was just showing you the promotional packages that will be available come the 1st of July. So look out for that, and we'll be sharing a little bit more about that as the weeks go on.
Yeah.
Okay?
So stay tuned and keep an eye out because there are changes afoot, but it's good changes. So we're supporting each other. So let's go through and do what we need to do together. Yeah. So today's guest. Well, we interviewed him. I think it was about a year ago.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my, I know a year has gone so quick
Yeah.
already.
Well, you sure because there was a COVID and so.
Well,
there's probably about 16 months
yeah,
ish.
in a good little
Yeah.
while.
Now, when we interviewed him, he was starting on some new project. He had spoken about wanting to do some new projects. So we're re-interviewing him again because he's such a wonderful character, person, a businessman, and so down to earth that we just thought we need to speak to Mark again. So today, without further ado, I do present to you Mr. Mark Dalgety of Dalgety Teas.
Yes.
Greetings, my brother. How are you?
Sir.
Greetings. I'm fine, thank you. Fine, thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Yes,
Nice to see
sure. Nice to invite me again to the show, I must say.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. And you know what? We got a lot of people who were very interested in what you were doing, the teas and so on. So we want to say, you know what? Let's go back to introduce Mark to people who may not have seen him, know about
The
him.
few, the few.
Yeah. And reintroduce because that's the best way for us to do. So,
Indeed.
without further ado, I think my dear, you will be.
Yeah, no, I will start. Yeah, so Mark, again, so people can get to reconnect and know you. Can you explain to us who you are and where you come from?
Okay, well, my name is Mark Dalgety. I'm the founder of Dalgety Teas. Dalgety Teas manufacture 100% strong flavored herbal teas. Synonymous mainly from the Caribbean, although now we don't actually always use the word Caribbean, we use ourselves as a global tea company, since that's where we head into. Yes. But in a nutshell, that's my name, that's the name of the company, that's what we do. At least our core business is tea business. We have some non-tea products, but we tend to always talk about the tea first.
Right, okay, we shall do indeed. And just in case people may wish to know, because when I do ask this question, people say, why do you ask that question? But I think it's, it can help people. Where were you educated?
I was educated in Guyana. That's where I grew up. Actually, funny enough, I actually was born in London, but my parents sent me to Guyana when I was 1 year old. So I actually grew all my life in Guyana. And then I came to London in my formative years at about 20. I studied and did a degree in chemical engineering. And then I spent a year in industry in the UK and then head back to Guyana. And then whilst in Guyana, I started this company. But then I realized I actually had a mortgage in the UK and I was living in Guyana with a mortgage in the UK, which was not a happy bunny in those days. So I ran myself totally broke and decided I had to do something to pay the bills in the UK whilst living in Guyana. And lo and behold, I ended up selling teas and landed right back in the UK.
Okay. So did you always want to be a businessman?
In terms of the training that you did, the education you took part, did you always want to? How did you want that to manifest itself for yourself?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a businessman. I think I was always business minded anyhow from a very young age. The only time I actually felt uncomfortable, I think, is actually when I finished my degree and I worked a year in industry, and I started calculating how long I would have had to wait to get some sort of promotion. So when the opportunity struck after a year, I just decided, look, if you're going to get into business, you might as well get into business while you're young. So if there's any mistakes, I could probably go and get a job when I'm older. You don't want to wait until you're 50-something years old and then try to do business. You know what I'm saying? And then collapse. So you're better off doing it as young as you can, where you have the strength and the not that you'll have the vision, but definitely the strength and the agility to deal with business. As you know, it could be very complex, challenging, exciting, and everything that goes with it. You know?
Yeah. Excellent. So how did Dalgety begin? How did you come about your business?
Well, as I said, I mean, the unfortunate circumstance that I started the business because I was broke, which normally is not the way most people would start a business. You know, I ran myself to the ground trying to stay in Guyana, and then suddenly realized that I was pretty much out of money. Came up with the idea when old Guyanese Chinese guy in Brixton asked me if I could get what you call Corilla bush in Guyana, but I didn't know what Corilla. No, he asked me to get Cerisi, but I didn't know what that was. Then he said it was Corilla. In Guyana, they call it Corilla bush. And he used the words and he said to me, "Oh, you could get." I asked him how much do you need, and he said any amount. So I thought, well, that was an interesting number, you know. Any amount, he said, and I called a few numbers. I said 1,000, 2,000, 3, 4, 5, 10. He said, yeah, that's okay. He said, So I'm like, okay. I just looked. I had £1,000 on my credit card available. I was just right back in London, and I just headed straight back to Guyana. I went into my grandparents' area, in the rural areas, gathered about £1,000 of this Cerisi bush, along with some of the younger folks in the village, and took it home and sit down with the scissors and cut it into 16,000 1-ounce packets, and with the scissors, and brought it back to England and sold it for 50 pence each and earned about £8,000. At first it obviously was a means to the end. You know, until one day I was walking through Brixton again, funny enough, a Brixton supermarket. And a guy asked me, he said, "Oh, you calling these little packets of stuff tea? Where's the tea bag?" You know? So when he said that, I mean, he was all laughing about it. That, I mean, I've got this little, because it wasn't packaged like that then. It was just in a little plastic bag with these loose leaves, you know. And and that word stuck in my head like tea bag, you know. And then I went into another shop, and I in those days, I think it was called a health food shop. And I saw all these. They were selling loose tea. They were selling some tea bags, and then it then dawned on me that, I mean, what these Europeans were calling herbal teas was really what we in the Caribbean call bush tea. You know, all it was really bush tea in a tea bag, and it was also the most premium tea. But then again, when I bought a few of them and tasted, it was actually not very. It was actually horrible, I would say. You know, they looked nicely packaged, but some of them smelled very well, but it didn't taste well. So I thought, well, I'm going to introduce these guys to some real herbal tea that came from the Caribbean, and that was the beginning of the race, you know.
Oh, brilliant!
Okay, so I've got to ask you, in terms of your experience so far, how has it been in terms of the business? How has it been overall? How have you found running a business?
A business is it's been great. It's been tiring. It's been a lot of ups and downs. You know, I've had many failures. I've had many successes.
Give me an example of a failure, or what you would consider to be, you know, a learning point. Because I always say that the failure is the learning curve where you go.
That's true. The failure is definitely always a learning curve. I mean, okay, let's see. I look for a big one, for instance, might be well, two ones. I mean, a big one was probably when I was trying to around 2009 or so, when we had the credit crunch era, and I was trying to reduce my cost of manufacturing, and I looked at a couple of opportunities, not the options of what I needed to do. So in order to get my cost of manufacturing down, because, you know, it was very expensive manufacturing in the UK, I opted and went off to Jamaica and set up a factory, a 5,000 square foot factory. I looked at some other countries, including Guyana, which I found very cumbersome. Barbados was good, but very expensive. Trinidad was a bit cumbersome also. But then the Jamaican government was very, very facilitating with inward investment, and they guided me through. I didn't really know Jamaica very well. I went down there, and I mean, I always say almost like a donkey with blinkers. I had a piece of paper in front of me that Jamaica Trade and Investment gave me and said, this is what I had to do, and literally followed it, you know what I mean, every single step by step, and set up a factory in an area called Maypen. And, you know, it went very well, you know, the setting up. I mean, you know, I think what normally a big corporation would need a whole department to do, I actually managed to do myself. You know, send down container machinery, 3-phase electricity into the warehouse. I mean, I found somewhere to live in Jaeger Heights or somewhere like that. You know, everything went well, and then I basically employed the first 10 people that rapped on the door, and I think everything was going on well, and they didn't listen to anything I said, and they broke up all the machinery. And
oh my word.
and I ended up with terrible tea bags being made in Jamaica, coming back to England that had to be redone. So I ended up with 2 factories, the cheap one making bad product, the expensive one having to do it over. So instead of my cost going down in the credit crunch, it went sky high. You know?
Right.
And
so what was the learning for you from that?
Well, what happened is that obviously I eventually closed the factory down, came back to the UK, as I say, as a wet dog, whacked and tired. I was obviously extremely annoyed with the Jamaicans for breaking up everything. And then one day I thought to myself, why are you blaming the guys from Jamaica? It's you the one that employed the folks, you know? I mean, stop blaming other people. You know, when things go wrong, you can't blame, you know, you're the one that employed the folks. If I learned to employ people properly, I wouldn't have gotten into trouble. You see what I'm saying? So I actually went on a course on how to employ people and began to surround myself with all the right people. Because even in the UK, I realized I wasn't employing people properly. I was just employing people based on just word of mouth, you know. And I mean, somebody would come and say they're an electrician, and I mean, I'm like, okay, fine, and all the guy could do is screw a bulb on. You know what I mean? So not until he's done enough damage around the factory, then I realized I have to sack him. And then because he might have been introduced by a good friend of mine, I might not have wanted to sack him, at least for the first few times he's done something disastrous, you know.
But maybe then, if you hadn't have gone to Jamaica in the first place and that situation happened, you wouldn't have even looked to recognize the situation that
once I understood that, I then grew the business again in about 3 years and doubled, almost at least went about 50% up in growth, because then I learned from that particular mistake.
Wow.
You know?
So now I would say so that's the learning. Now, what about one of the pleasures of being in business? Because I've always thought there's got to be a pleasure for why people suffer like that to make a business. What is the pleasure?
I mean, the pleasure is that's a good question, because I mean, you know, the pleasure is always the fact that you're still standing. That's the first one you take, you know, praises to the Almighty for that one, you know. That you're still standing, you're still doing business. I mean, I would like to think of, there's so many things I could say is successful. The successful things is that I mean, we've got about 30 lines of teas. At least 25 of them are very good sellers, which I think is a very high record. I mean, I've met companies who've got
30.
30 lines.
No, I've got about 30 lines of teas, just over 30 lines of teas. I mean, I've met companies who've got 50 lines of teas, and 5 is responsible for 75% of the sales in the company, you know? So I think my model of my model of developing good quality products is definitely a success that I would like to say is something that I've achieved, and is something to probably say is been good, you know, because it's not always easy to develop a product from scratch, you know, and build it right through. Because I mean, my passion is not, some people think we make teas, but I mean, although I make teas, what my passion is really making things. You know, as an engineer, what I like to do is taking things from bottom end, taking it from the farmer, teaching the farmer to dry the products, taking it through the whole process of drying, tea bagging, chopping, blending. I look at the particle size of the tea. I look at the tea bag paper I use, the way it absorbs the tea, the diffusion rate. I mean, all kinds of stuff I look into, and that gets me excited. I mean, you might need a cup of tea, but
actually do it. So let me ask you a question now, because you see, you are coming from the end of the product, from the very inception to the end product. The question for me, for you, was how do you market such a product that you have put together? Because, you know, your skill set, you know, you can see that what you've done is miraculous, to be honest, because since we spoke, you've put on so many more products. But the question is, how do you market those given that you are the man who creates them? Is there not a sort of contradiction? How do you get that together?
Well, I mean, I'm also probably a salesman now in the marketing, because what tends to happen, I mean, I actually just do I did it the old school way. Nobody can sell the product better than you yourself. Yeah. And I mean, from the early days, I mean, although I come from an engineering background, I literally went on the road and stopped from shop to shop and started selling the products. And then I did some what I call common sense approach, which is simply look at the population demographics and who I wanted to target. So I mean, the first target was obviously the Afro-Caribbean community. So I simply, I mean, in those days, you didn't have all the Google Analytics and so forth when I started. I just went into the library and literally used the consensus book and looked for all the high density areas that West Indians live everywhere in the UK. And then I took the yellow pages and simply photocopied all the supermarkets, grocery shops in those areas, and literally went to shop in those areas. Obviously, over the last 25 years, I mean, what I did, I have now taught my salesmen that work on the road to do. You see what I'm saying? So they got a better start. And then obviously since then we got ourselves into the big supermarket chains like Sainsbury's, Tesco, Asda. We use that as provenance to the fact that we've been a successful brand for us to get it listed there, we obviously have to be doing something right. So I mean, the same concept that I would have used to start is the same concept that we use it as a culture into the salesmen that I have on the road at this point in time.
Okay, so that is just part of the infrastructure for how you sell your product. Now, I'm not going to skim over it because you just skimmed over it, and that was going to be my next question. What year did you start the business? Obviously, you said 25 years, but my maths is not good. So when did you start?
About 1995, around 1995 is when I started.
And is it this year? When is your 20th?
Well, last year would have been 25 years. So this year is a 26 years. Yes. October this year will be 26 years.
Be applauded, honestly.
Yes. Yes.
Well done, sir. Well done.
I was younger and slimmer then.
Well, you don't look like you've been selling your teas for 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah, you don't look like this.
Yeah. Guys, you're listening to somebody that is still here, still standing, okay, after 25 years. And his products are just getting bigger and better and better and better. And just before we go a little bit further, I know you touched on quickly that, your product range is pretty vast. Just name a couple of the teas. I mean, not the usual ones that everyone knows, but...
well, I mean, of late, what we've developed is things like turmeric. As you know, turmeric is one of the teas that is good for the inflammation in the system. As you know, most viruses, bacteria, germs are really harbored in your body in the inflammation and mucus in your system. So turmeric is one of those products that actually get rid of the mucus and indirectly helps to cure your body of any ailment that you're having. So we've developed like the pure turmeric and ginger, and then a very unusual one, which is actually turmeric and black pepper, which most people would want to raise their eyes about. But then that one day, I have to tell the truth, was actually taught to me by a colleague of mine who was actually suffering from cancer. I mean, God bless the dead, she passed away, but she managed to stave off cancer for about, I don't know, at least 10 years, and, I couldn't understand when she said to me, she's putting our teas and she took turmeric and she put black pepper and this black pepper. And she said, no, when you put the turmeric and black pepper, it increases the dissolve in rate of the turmeric into your bloodstream by 2,000%. Yeah. Wow. Yes. By 2,000%. So she said, you have to do that, Mark, and it was such a funny old situation. Denise George was her name. I mean, on the day that I launched the product itself, and I was calling her to say, hey, I've managed to do it. It's the same day that she passed away. So I always try to remember and, give, thanks. And I mean, call her name because, I mean, I always felt that it's just unusual that happened to me because she's the one that taught me about all this turmeric stuff,
Yeah, and she deserves to be remembered for that.
Yes.
So throughout the years you've been developing your tea. So the question now is, Mark, you have now expanded, and so can you explain to me what's a program that you're looking to do?
Have you expanded your business? Have you been able to do that?
Okay, expansion. Well, there again is straight. Well, I always use the word common sense, and another word I like to use is the root of least resistance. As you know, we target. Our teas are made for everyone ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Everyone drinks tea, right? But then at the same time, you can't target everyone at the same time. So we originally targeted the consumers that come from the Africa, the Caribbean, India, China, the people that we felt were into more spicy, strong flavored products. Because if you know, a lot of European teas tend to be much weaker, blander. People that come from these sort of Asian kind of subcontinent, African subcontinent, Caribbean, which is always made up of these people, like stronger flavors. If they're drinking ginger tea,
So
they want
would you consider that to be your UPS then in terms of
yes,
US?
it's our use. It is our UPS.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was a strong flavored teas, and
Strong flavors.
so
Not the
sorry, no. I mean, the funny thing about it, we didn't start off by planning to do it. What we were trying to do is make the teas taste as genuine as we say it is. So if we said lemon and ginger, we wanted people to taste that ginger. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's only over a period of time we started seeing people saying, "Oh, I love Dalgety lemon and ginger because you know what? I could take 3 cups of tea with 1 tea bag, and it's so nice and strong." And then is when we picked up the word strong, but we didn't actually originally start it off. Sometimes once a product hits the market, then it gets its own life, you know. And then from that, you begin to pick up ideas that, hey, this is why it's trending in this name, and then you begin to pick up these words, you know. But when we first started, it was just trying to do it properly, full stop. You know, it wasn't designed to say it's going to be strong. It was just designed to try and make sure if we say ginger, we mean ginger. If we say peppermint, we mean peppermint. You know, but then the market is the one that started using the word strong, and then we then picked it up. So it wasn't me that came up with the strong word. It's actually the market that we adopted it from. You know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. But just before we go further, Mark, just to touch again, because you did mention initially that you started with the leaf itself.
Yes, the loose leaves. Yes.
How did you transition? Was that a conscious thing to change from the leaf to?
Well, it's the same leaves. All we did is package it into tea bags, because obviously once you did it into tea bags, then you've now opened yourself to be able to compete with any major tea company in the world, because it's not packaged for what I call a first world metropolitan world. You know what I mean to say, and even the modern day consumer, because I mean, back in the Caribbean, I mean, you know, you got some bush tea or so, everybody's got a bit of time, throw it in the pot, boil it, sit down, read the newspaper and all this kinds of stuff. You don't have that time in the UK, you know. Everybody just wants something that's reasonably instant, where they just put the tea in a tea bag into hot water, 1 minute it brews and they start drinking. Not all this boiling and strain the leaves off and that sort of stuff.
They just want to make it, boil it,
keep moving. Yes,
keep it moving.
Everybody's on the move.
Yeah.
So how are you able to navigate in the different? I mean, right now we're talking about the expansion of your business. So what are you looking at in terms of your expansion, and how are you able to navigate to ensure that you expand your business elsewhere?
What areas?
Our expansion drive is mainly on the African continent, because obviously we targeted the people of African descent, and obviously India and Asia. We got various expansion moves going on that simultaneously. Some are ahead of others, which is right now, as you know, we set up a Ghanaian operation. We're moving into Nigeria. Today, one of my colleagues in Business Associates said they're presenting this week in Zimbabwe. We are also setting up in USA. We've also got a operation setting up in a distribution set up in South Korea. That's from the Asian market side. The one that is most furthest ahead is actually now is Ghana, because we actually set up our own base. We have our own warehouse. We have our own van salesmen on the road. We've already been listed in one of the major supermarket chains, Palace Mall. As we speak, within the last hour, my salesman just confirmed with me probably the largest supermarket chain at the moment in Ghana, which is Melcom's, got about 30 or 40 big supermarkets. They have just agreed to list the products. So that is a confirmation of ours. So, you know, moving full blast ahead there. And Nigeria, this week here, we've just finished most of the processes in terms of registration, which is for the Food and Drug Association. We actually completed that
Wait,
this
wait,
morning.
wait a minute. Go back. Breathe.
A lot of stuff.
Right.
I'm sure people will want
The
to know, wow,
process.
how?
Now you've just skimmed over that, but let's go into that, the process, because you've done that process in England, but in our conversations, one of the areas that I thought, was very interesting was that you found it that the process in Africa was, you explained.
Yeah, the process in Africa is actually much stringent, more stringent almost than the UK, because what at least in West Africa, between Nigeria and Ghana and some of these countries have realized is that a lot of companies, it's not necessarily from the UK, but from certain other parts of the world, were taking advantage of exporting products that were not of the right content, not of the right quality.
Not
So
the top
they've
grade.
got, yes. So what they've done, I mean, you could buy an aspirin and it's not really aspirin. That sort of silly stuff, And so they've got a very, very stringent Food and Drug Associations there, that you literally have to conform and fill out a lot of forms related to where the product originates from, to display that your manufacturing process is on par, that the food and is hygienic and every single thing that goes with it, So you have to have ISO 9000 standards, BRC standards, and things like that,
So this isn't just a matter of, sorry to disrupt here, but this isn't just a matter of I've got a product and because I'm selling it in England, it must be good enough, so I'm selling it in Africa. Gone are those days, basically. That's what we're saying here.
I mean, at least there's people that are obviously still selling their products there, but most of those kind of products are selling what you call on the ground. You probably find the people in the streets selling it, or you might find it at a market vendor. But then if you're talking about doing real serious business, and you want to get your product into the supermarket chains and proper establishments, right? You got to go, you better off going through that, do it the right way. I mean, as I said, in my case, I mean, even in Nigeria, it's taken me 10 years to get here,
10 years. Oh, wow.
Yes. I mean, just going through different processes in terms of different business people that came along, said they were interested, never delivered until we decided to just do it ourselves. I mean, and in Ghana, I mean, it took me going through this process. I think it started in March. I mean, I could tell you the story of that, how it started. It's just that
go ahead.
Luckily, well, I mean, I could almost use the word luckily. If I'm going to say luckily enough for COVID, which is not is an unusual statement to make.
We all understand because we have.
But I mean,
we actually we will survive the worst. We'll make the best of whatever we can. So surviving it, you have. So carry on.
Yes. So basically, what transpired is that what I would call a raving fan of Dalgety brand, a colleague, he became a friend. But he wherever he travels in the world, he literally travels and walks with his Dalgety teas, and he's always using it. He actually boasts that he could sell the tea better than me. Actually, that's what a fan he is, basically, And he went over to Ghana for a funeral and got stuck in the pandemic last March. I ran out of teas. Called me to say he's got to get some teas. I eventually sent it to him. He obviously started sharing it around as he normally likes. Suddenly, everyone was rapping on his door every morning, wanting more teas. All the neighbors in the neighborhood, where could we have more of these teas? So he said to me, "Look, I mean, you need to get the teas over here." And by that time, because he was stuck, I said, "Well, you want to help me to set up a company over there?" And he said, "Fine. I mean, I can't move anything. I don't have anything to do right now. I'm just sitting down here waiting to see if the borders are going to open." So I then guided him through, and he just listened to everything I do. I reckon he put on the blinkers, the donkey blinkers, like I did in Jamaica, and followed everything script for script, and we set up a company. And then after 4 months, he's like, "Hey, I'm not even coming back to England, man. I'm staying here and sell Dalgety teas, So
literally, you guided him to begin the company.
Yes.
That is fabulous.
And then he decided
that he's not coming back here. He's living in Ghana. He stayed there and sell Dalgety teas.
Wow.
And here we are now.
Question, are you going to follow that same format to look for people who are in that same
Well, I mean, you'd be surprised to know that many a times that is sometimes, I mean, even my major agent out in Nigeria is actually is a fan, is a fan of the teas, and he believes in it, I mean, he said that's why he's going full throttle 200 miles an hour to get it into the market,
Yeah.
So sometimes it's interesting that there's normally somebody, because sometimes for people to jump the boundaries and stay focused, you have to believe in what you're doing. And if you totally believe in the product, the passion that you would try to succeed and exceed in what you're doing, exceed with what you're doing, it's because you believe in what you're drinking or using, and I gotta say, luckily that has been the case,
So one of the things now we spoke about was people who talk it big, but when it comes to putting down, they don't throw down the same way that they talk large. So in terms of supporting you in establishing your business, how have you sort of,
especially out there,
gone through that process with people? Can you give an example of how that works? To the negative part for you.
Okay, it happens all the time. I mean, you meet folks all the time that say they want to do things. I mean, and now I think I get more short-witted about it, because I wouldn't wait a whole 6 months to realize that they're wasting time. Within a month or two, you begin to realize they're a time waster. And then another thing I've learned from that is also that it's always better to just do business with business people. Because there's a lot of people who want to do business, and they might be in a 9-to-5, or they're dreaming about doing business. So they come to you with this concept that they want to do this and they want to do that. But then when it comes to the real thing, they don't have the stomach, to realize that I'm going to do this stuff, and you know what? Come the 30th of the month, there's no paycheck coming. You see what I'm saying? So they continue living in that dream of hoping, And so those sort of folks you have to really be aware of, you know what I mean to say? Just don't depend on them, you know what I mean? Some of them might come true, but up to now, most of them that I've ever spoken to have never come true. The people who have always delivered is people who are real business people, who ultimately, yes.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that being said now, for me, I'll still come back and ask you, obviously incredibly brave, to say, okay, you're going to start moving into these different, into the continent itself. So deciding to do so, how long did the process take? I would say initially then, in Ghana, so for instance, to start seeing your teas and so on, your products on the shelves.
Well, as I said, I mean, we've always knew that is where we had to head to. I mean, when you do the maths, right, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you look at the African continent, it's got approximately 1.4, 1.5 billion people. Okay. Nigeria alone, 200 million, Ghana, 35 million. Okay. Those are I know in the products that I'm going to compete against there in that market with. I mean, 10 years ago when I went there, the first time I landed in West Africa, I thought I was going to see some great Ade Ulu brand or some Kofi brand or some, and I met Lipton and Twinings. So that was the brand I met there. So I actually started smiling from ear to ear, because these are the same brands or folks that I displaced in Brixton, Harlesden, and all the black communities 25 years ago in the UK. So I'm thinking if I could beat these guys in the UK market, then I got a very strong chance to do it in the African market.
Exactly.
So I mean, why am I bothering to try and go to compete with them more in Scotland or somewhere like that, which is their territory. You see what I'm saying? It's just silly of me to do something like that, So I mean, but as I said, I mean, the opportunities are really there in the African continent. It's obviously a bit more of a challenging environment, but the success rate is extremely, and not only that, I mean, a lot of times when you come from, I mean, either as a black person out of the Caribbean or you live in the UK, you don't realize how small you think, you know what I mean? compared to how the guys on the African continent think. I mean, I'll give you two scenarios, right? I mean, one is recent, and I'll tell you the oldest one. The oldest one is when I first went to Nigeria, for instance, and I was trying to buy sorrel. And a guy came to me, a little youngster, well, youngish guy, and he had on a short pants and a rubber slip, and he was trying to sell me. I wanted to buy like about, I think it was 5 tons to 10 tons of sorrel. He wanted to send me a whole container of 20 tons. And and he couldn't understand why I only wanted to buy this little 5-10 tons. And he said he's only a small supplier, you know. And you know, then he asked me where I was from. I said I was from Guyana. And he didn't know where Guyana was. So I asked him, he asked me how many people live in Guyana. I said it's about 1 million. And he couldn't believe it. He said the whole country has 1 million people. He said my village has 8 million. And I'm only a small little supplier. All I sell is 1 container a month. And one container is 20 grand. You know what I'm saying? So, because he's comparing himself, and he said, then his eyes perked up, and he said, the largest supplier for my village, do you know what he does? He sells 48 containers into the Middle East. So, I mean, and that's his village, you know? Right? Yeah, but I mean, the dynamics of how they think there, you see what I'm saying? In the business mind, we there running around trying to sell 2 packets or whatever we're selling over here, or a little pallet. And I mean, these guys are thinking, I mean, you know, even the next one is recent, right? I mean, and I was almost embarrassed because I think I was thinking big anyhow. But I mean, my agent out of Nigeria, for instance, I mean, as we began to get closer to navigating through our processes, and he said, look, Mark, I mean, we're only going to try and list about 8 lines of teas into Ghana to start off with, okay? So I said, okay, fine. And he said, which ones? And I asked him why he chose this one. He said, well, because I've got pre-orders for those ones already. Okay. So I said, that's fine. So I then said to him, well, okay, we have 8 lines. Okay, you look at the move a container or 2. How do you want me to assort the pallets in the container? And he looked at me puzzled. He said, assort the pallets in the container. I want a container of each line. You know what I'm saying? To start with. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, each of the lines to start with. You see what I'm saying? Because he's like, what am I going to do with 1 pallet of each? I need a container each to give a start. You see what I'm saying? You know? So could you imagine if he said he wanted all 30 lines of tea, then there'll be 30 containers, right? But I mean, you know, but that is the capacity we deal with the African continent, you know, and that's why business people from this part of the world, especially black ones, have to understand where the opportunity arises, because we're there running around collecting chicken feed over here. By the time we buy, you know, I mean, a BMW with some shine wheels, we think we've made it in life. And they got guys over there from like say Nigeria, and they don't even want to travel first class in the plane. They all want to buy private jets because that's how they're thinking. You know, they think getting first class in the plane, sitting next to somebody else is a failure. You know, because they're thinking they want to have their own jet. You know, and I mean, you have to be in those environments to see black folks moving in those ways and succeeding. You know, and that's why I think it's marvelous heading in those directions. You know.
So let me ask you a question then. Indeed. Where do you see Dalgety in 5 years' time?
Well, I mean, we're definitely going to be established in at least about 3 or 4 of the African continent countries. I think my American stuff is also moving, and I mean, our export drive is really on the move in a major way. You know, also, I think we're probably moving into some of the non-tea products a bit more, and then
and you still haven't spoken to us about what the teas are. Because I know you got 30 teas, so now
I can't call all the teas. That take all night.
No, I know. But tell us about your favorite then. That's it. So people at least get an idea of what the favorite ones or the ones that are selling best.
Wow, I mean, it's easier to say the ones that don't sell best because only about 4 or 5 of them. You know, I mean, exactly. Because I mean, we have moringa teas, for instance. As you know, moringa is good about building your immune system. I mean, right now, a lot to do with the COVID environment. A lot of people are now into really understanding or trying to understand what is best to drink or what's best to eat. So, I mean, herbal teas obviously is one of the products high up in the agenda in terms of building immune system. So So we have different teas for different things, whether it's like the turmeric, as I said, there's the moringa teas, there's the ginger flavored teas, there's the peppermint flavored teas. Peppermint is good for your digestive system, strengthening your heart, whitening your teeth. You know, you have lemongrass also, as you know, well, lemongrass is also known for being one of the active ingredients in lemongrass is what they make. Is it chloroquine? One of those for malaria. You know, lemongrass is good for that. We have cinnamon. We have the cerasee tea and neem, which is good for diabetes and blood pressure. Cerasee, as you know, is one of the, I always say, is one of the worst tasting teas we do, but the best one for you because it's very bitter. And neem tea is even more bitter than the cerasee. You know, so that's for like diabetes, blood pressure, arthritis. We started moving into teas.
What was that one again? What was that tea?
Which one?
For diabetes.
Oh, the cerasee and the neem. Cerasee and neem, NEEM, you know. And then we started moving into teas. Like of recent, we did some teas starting to deal with direct ailments, things like good night sleep, which is to do with insomnia. We've recently been doing a lot of research on moringa, and one of the things we realized is that it's also good for menopause. You know, so we just now getting deeper into understanding it. We didn't really want to say much about it now, but I mean now because I normally a lot of our teas we also subcontract out research and development in terms of the uses and things like that, just to get better knowledge and so forth. So when people ask us questions, we know which universities or institutes around the world is doing research on various things. You know. You know,
that's a really good range.
Yes.
I will tell everybody, as they can see down the bottom there, they can visit the website just to see the different range of teas that are available.
Yes.
So do take your time and go through there because as you can see, it's on the screen, and we'll also put it in all the links as well.
So people actually get to know. So, but you were saying about the non-teas now. What are those? Because I saw a bottle of bitters.
Yes.
I've never tried it, but I'm tempted to. I'm going to.
Oh yeah. Power bitters. Yes, that is really a bitter drink. For it's made up of a lot of bitter vines and so forth. Neem, something called bitterwood, quasi bitters. Mainly used for diabetes and blood pressure. We also do noni juice. As you know, you might have heard of noni before. It's something like aloe vera, but it's also good about building the immune system. One of the products we are looking at on and off for the long while, but I think by the end of the next 12 months I launch it, is we're thinking of moving some of our products over into spices and herbs. Because most of them actually could be sold as herbs and spices, but we never decide to package it in that format, you know. So
you're developing that.
Yeah. I mean, we already buying black pepper, so we might as well also sell it as a spice. You know, we already, we already dealing with ginger. We might as well use it as a spice sauce because people also cook with some of these things. You know, so it's just a natural transition. Yeah.
Can I ask, because you see what I'm listening to is someone who's providing teas and herbal, but it's almost like you don't go over emphasizing that it's all about the herbal and it's all about the healthy lifestyle and those photos and everything else.
You don't go
there. You just do what needs to be done, which I commend you about.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think that's so important, because some people just see, you've got to see all the photos and everything, but the important thing is you provide the goods that actually deliver.
Speaks for themselves.
Yes.
Speaks for themselves.
But we always believe in that anyhow. I mean, we feel that the proof is in the pudding. So it's no sense talking over the top about all these things. I mean, just sit the person the tea, let them experience it for themselves. That experience normally is a far better seller than you talking and not delivering on what you're saying. You know? So to me, I've always believed in that format.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's really good, Mark. So in terms of expansion, you seem to be going everywhere, and you've explained so eloquently how you've moved into the the African diaspora and of making great gains there. So what are your plans for, or are there any further expansion into any other countries for the business in the near future?
Well, the most unusual one is definitely Korea, because that's not Africa.
Oh,
yes. Wow. So we are actually in the process of that's where you see having a good product sales, because we met there again was a raving fan, funny enough. Korean guy contacted us about, I think it was late last year, saying he was totally mad about our teas, and that he was working in the UK, came from Korea, worked in a pharmaceutical company that that was originally from Korea, but the company decided to close the operations here and moved it to Europe. And he'd actually built the company from about £500,000 to about £8 million during a 5-year period. And he said that he wants to take Dalgety teas to South Korea. So he bought all his teas. He didn't even ask for samples, and he headed off there. And he started. He's telling us, "Well, I've set up my company. It's Jade International." He's asked us to send all these documents, that document, and we're 90% there. And we've just recently last week linked him with our shipping agent, who linked him with the Korean shipping agent. So there's a high chance that Dalgety teas might be will I wouldn't say might, it will be become a prominent tea in the South Korean market. So that's our Asian connection. So I think that's a good one, because I mean it's it shows that, I mean, you don't have to just focus on just your community, that if you make a good product, you know what I'm saying, that anyone in the world is capable of buying it. You see what I'm saying? So that to me is definitely a great one.
That is a good thing. That's a good thing, because you see, while we're speaking about expansion in Africa and so on, but Mr. Dalgety many years back was actually in Europe and spending time in some countries in Europe which you wouldn't expect to find Dalgety teas. But can you explain what was going on there? Because you have been around. Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to sell tea, I always feel that, look, I mean, people buy tea from India and China. They never say it's Chinese tea or it's Indian tea or whatever. Exactly. Why should I limit myself, because I'm from the Caribbean, to feel that it's only the Caribbean community, although the provenance of the tea is a flavored tea from the Caribbean? I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to. That's why the reason we focus on getting our packaging, so that I could walk like any Chinese, Indian, Korean person into any supermarket and present and line up with my head high in the air and present my product and compete with them like for like. You see what I'm saying? Indeed. Instead of feeling that, I mean, we have this way, like we always seem to think that anytime we want anything of substance, we have to go to these places and buy. I mean, I always think of what could I sell to China? I don't think of what I could buy to China. I think of what I could sell to the Chinese. You see what I'm saying? That's the way you have to be thinking. You see what I'm saying? So, there got to be something that they want. You know what I mean to say?
Shift that mindset and think very differely, which
Absolutely.
I think you have explained so well tonight, which is expand where you're looking to put your business. So with that being said, I will say to you, after 25 years, young in the business, what does your legacy look like? What would you like your legacy to be?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I think I would like my kids to definitely continue what I'm doing. Obviously trying to garner them to do that. Interesting to see which one is going to pick up the mantle in the true sense. Right. I mean, people began calling me the master tea blender, so I reckon that's not a bad name to leave back as a legacy. But then those two little ways, I mean, I would like to think that my teas could last the length of time that Twinings, who started in 17-something, does. That would be a very good legacy. Means that it becomes a household name, not necessarily just in a black consumer market, but in a white consumer market, in an Indian consumer market, in a Chinese consumer market, and hopefully leads the way for every West Indian or Caribbean person to feel, or even African or anyone of black descent, to feel that any product that they make, they must not necessarily think that is only to their community, but we have to be able to sell to other communities. I mean, that is one of my wishes in my life. I mean, not just for my product, of any product manufactured by any person of African descent.
Right. So may I ask you then, how do you, in terms of legacy, how do you sort of try to support your children or whoever in terms of maintaining that legacy? What are you putting in place? Are you looking to do sort of apprenticeships and so on in your business to support that legacy? Are you looking at your own children in terms of going to university and study what you are doing to take over the mantle?
Yeah.
How are you looking at legacy?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just my. I mean, obviously you start with your kids, but I mean, I would start with my kids first. Then I would probably look at my surrounding family members, because it's not about just taking just your kids for kids' sake. You want to take the person who's going to be the most successful in taking this stuff forward. Then I mean, then you look at all your family, probably my sister's kids, then my cousin's kids. Then I mean, from there, then you might look and see people in your community that might be able to do it. So then I mean, I'm working on setting up a trust fund so that is the best person is available. I mean, we employ people in my company, not on their color or anything. Like, we employ them on your skills and ability to deliver on what we want to achieve as a company. You know, so we don't get involved with that kind of stuff. Else you could, I mean, really find yourself in a lot of problems. You know what I mean to say? So I mean, you know, but the legacy definitely will be, you know, starting from in that stage. I mean, obviously, at the moment, I try to get my kids from a small age involved in very small things. It might be just simply packing, stacking the car, stacking a van, you know, counting stuff, you know, little things. Even when they're learning to do their numbers or something like that, we've always had them counting boxes of tea instead of just counting figures for figure's sake. You know, count how many tea bags in a box or something, like multiply 6 cases of tea by this, how many clears are in a pallet. That's how they do their maths.
It's real to them.
Yes, yes. You know.
And finally, Mark.
Final question.
Well, you know, I mean, it's been. I like to see it as more of a conversation. I think it's been a really interesting one. But finally, and hopefully, when people do see this particular interview that we've done with you today, Mark, that they will look back at it and really take it on board. But the final question, in that sense, is: what advice would you give to anyone who is watching that would want to, you know, that wants to start up their business? You know, little nuggets.
Little nuggets. I mean, the first thing you got to be is, I always say to people, you need to be focused in what you're doing. You have to be determined, right? Those are two basic essentials. You know, stay focused, stay determined, work hard, but more importantly, work smart. You know, in what you're trying to achieve. Think out of the box, you know, and I mean, understand your USP, your unique selling point in what you're selling. Understand your targeted market, you know. I mean, because I mean the markets out there are huge, you know, and sometimes you have to find that portion of the market that you feel that you immediately could resonate with, and then from there you build and move on. You can't attack the whole market at the same time. You see what I'm saying? That you're just going to be drowned it out. You know, but little steps like that, you know, would help you to succeed. You know, but I mean, for any young entrepreneur or big entrepreneur, old entrepreneur, I mean, entrepreneurs could come in any shape and form. I mean, if you think about the guy that started KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think he started when he was 67 years old. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So don't think that because you're 60 or 70 or whatever that's the end of it. You know what I mean? That might be the beginning. You know? So I mean, I would say to Ernie and everyone that those are the concepts and the things that they should look at.
And I hope everybody has taken that on board and have written that down, because it is in you know, it is necessary. But how are you going? I mean, obviously last year was lockdown. You're 25. How are you going to celebrate that landmark?
I know the COVID sort of stopped you in between, but you know, you're 25 years. What's the celebration?
I don't know. I haven't really thought of anything to tell you. Probably in the 30th years. I mean, you know, the thing about celebration is normally sometimes when you're working towards achieving something, when you reach to that point, by that time you're thinking of something else, so you don't even realize that is the need for celebration, because you're now thinking, well, hey, I got to take on Africa. So I mean, I didn't even realize it was 25 years until after the 25 years anyhow. Somewhere I was doing something and like we actually started, like, it's actually 25 years. I thought I only started last week. You know, so sometimes, you know, you don't really You know, because you're always looking ahead of something you're trying to do. So you don't really be sitting and counting the years. You see what I'm saying? You know, as I said, I flew past the years and didn't realize it was 25 years until after the 25 years when I was speaking with someone. They said, "Oh, when you start, I said, by the way, it's actually 25 years. I thought I only just started business a few years back." You know, yeah. So
yeah. Well, congratulations once again.
Well done.
The Master Tea Blender.
Yes.
I think you should stick with that. The Master Tea Blender.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you know, and we wish you all the success in
thank you
your adventures and your expansions. I'm sure we will see your name everywhere.
Yes.
And especially you know, in Africa, where everybody should be.
Yes, and I commend the work that you guys are doing also on Black Recommendation. I must say, I think it's important for the community what you're doing. You know, engaging Black businesses, bringing them to the platform, interviewing them, giving them a chance to say what they have to say. It's absolutely important, you know, because I mean, you know, I don't think, if you think about it, if you look at the BBC or any one of the big television stations, they want to really bring on a Black entrepreneur. They will faster bring on, you know, one of the big European or white guys from their community. You see what I'm saying? You know, I mean, unless you're exceptional football player, that's the only way you're going to find yourself on TV talking and things. You see what I'm saying? You know, so we as a community have to do these things in order to promote the people within our community. So well done to you guys, I must say also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You know, as you saying that, it's something of a recognition, because us, to a certain degree, we are not coming out unless we're singing and dancing. And to have members regularly coming to see what we're doing, participate, share, collaborate, network in a business group, because we have no dancing, no religion, politics, you know, it is a real accomplishment. And you know, I want to thank all our members, because you stay true to what we have been true to, which is business first. And you know, as long as we all have that mindset to do the business first, we'll all get there.
Absolutely.
And thank you, also as well for being one of our sponsors as well.
We didn't even say that, you know. Get that on the down. But you know what,
we
ladies and gentlemen,
to shine
this is one of our sponsors.
Yes, and it's a pleasure to have you back on the game, Mark. And,
yes, okay then.
And we'll keep in touch. Again. We'll always keep in touch.
Yes, thank you.
As you progress, we will keep on letting people know and progress with you too.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Blessing.
Bye.
So,
well, guys, that was lovely to see Mark again, and I hope everybody has picked up on all the great things that he's doing with.
I mean, we're
Dalgety
talking
Teas, the business.
25 years.
That's
in the business, and so when you see that a man like that does his business with such joy, and he still look younger than when he first interviewed him.
I know,
right?
I know.
Look at me with my grey beard and thing. My man come out back and he's all young and thing again.
Well,
right? I swear it's a tease.
I think it is the tease. Well, we look forward to seeing great things and hearing more about the expansion in the African diaspora. But having said that, everybody, it has been a pleasure. But next week he will tell you just briefly.
We have Toyan Davison of Property Pillar. It's all right, Pillars. Now, believe me, I've had conversations with this woman, and her business is on point. And she wants to help us, everyone, to look into property investment. And don't look at what you can't do, but look at what is possible. And that's where she's at. It's not about what you can't do. It's about the possibilities. And we're going to explore that next week with her, because her company is going to work with BBR to ensure that we can provide our community with the right possibilities of building our legacy. So until then,
we'll have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bless.